Hi everybody, this is Todd Olthoff from ToddOlthoff.com coming back at you with another screencast. In this week we're going to take a look at the file sharing service that's built into Yosemite server. Now file sharing is probably one of the most basic reasons anyone would want to run a server. To be able to have centralized storage for your files and folders and then have other people be able to access those from their remote machines is, again, one of the reasons most people run a server. Now, you technically don't have to run OS X server to use file sharing. File sharing is actually included right inside System Preferences here. Under your sharing options, you do have file sharing set up right here where you can then turn it on, set preferences, set different shared folders and everything built right into OS X. So if you're looking at basic file sharing, you don't necessarily need it that way. But if you want more fine-tuned and centralized control, instead of just having control on the machine that you're on, and also be able to use file sharing for other things such as home folders and that sort of stuff, then a server is what you really want to do to be able to get that stuff put exactly where you want it. And that way, if you have your different drives and things that are connected to your server, everybody can have that access. Now, one of the questions I do get over and over again is, should I use a NAS, right, a network attached storage, or should I use storage connected to my server? If you use network attached storage, you cannot basically control that through OS X server. You would have to do that through the software that comes with the NAS. So what you're going to want to do is have attached drives to your server, and basically your server is handling the work of file sharing that's built into a NAS itself. So you're getting the benefit of that right here built into servers. So I just want to clear that up because I do get that question frequently. Okay, so let's take a look at how the file sharing service works. As you can see, we've got our access area up here, which tells us the status, which obviously right now we're offline because we haven't started the service. You can see it's still off. We also have our permissions, and again, this field goes through all the services in OS X server. So again, you can come in here and edit. Users can connect from. It can be either all users or only some. If you say only some, then you get to specify who gets access to the file sharing service. We're just going to leave it at all users right now. And then you can say when connecting from, and you can say all networks, private networks, or only some networks. So you can limit the networks that people can connect from if you don't want them connecting from, any external network. You just want it inside or whatever. In this case, we're going to say all networks because I want to be able to reach this from wherever I'm at. So I'm just going to cancel and leave that alone. Now down here we have our shared folders, and so these are all the different folders that we're sharing right now with the file sharing service, or we will be sharing once we turn it on. And then we've got two tabs up here. We've got a settings tab and a connected users tab. And let me just click on this real quick. This connected users tab will show us users that are connected to the server when they're connected. So I'm going to do a screencast showing you how to connect to your shares, and when we do that, I'll show you what it looks like to have people connected and be able to manage them from this screen. So let's go back here and let's just take a look at a basic folder here. To add a file share, you would use the plus. To get rid of one, you'd use the minus. And then to edit, you can either double click on that or click the pencil here to edit it. Now, when you get into the actual file share screen, again, you've got the name of the actual file that you've got here, the folder that I'm sharing. And you can see I've got a path here that tells me where that folder is located. I can share over all of these different protocols. So SMB is typically what was a Windows file sharing protocol, but it's a universal one. And so Apple is moving more and more to using SMB. And so they've built the latest version of SMB right into server. You still have AFP, which is Apple's file sharing protocol. That's an older one that will probably be phased out here pretty soon, but it's still available right now. And so I've got that checked just so I can share over any protocol I want. And then you've got the WebDAV protocol, which basically allows you to share this particular folder and its contents with iOS devices. And so you can get there through a WebDAV connection, and most iOS devices that have apps that connect to servers have this connection available. So you'll want that checked if you want to share it with iOS devices. Now, in the settings area, you have different options here that you can make available. I can encrypt connections if I want to, which means that I can basically send and receive files over SSL or encrypted type connections so that way the contents are encrypted, and so they're just more protected. That's a new feature that's been added here in Yosemite server that you can do it right from here. I can also allow guest users to access the share if I want to. And then I can also make this particular folder available for home directories, and then I can pick the protocol I want to make it available for. So let me explain what that means. Home directories gives you the ability to store somebody's home folders on the server itself, so that basically they can log in from any computer that you've got on your network using their account that you have set up on server, and their home folder and desktop will show up on that machine. So instead of only having your home folder for a particular machine attached to the machine itself, that home folder sits on the server, so you can use any machine to get at it. You just have to log into the server. And so I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute once I set up another folder, but I just want to let you know that was there real quick. Now down here is our permissions, and this is where we set who can access what and do what with the folders that they want. You can see here I've got a custom setting for everyone. I've got myself on here a couple of times. I got staff, everyone else. And let me just show you the different settings. If I click on this one, you'll see that we've got the option for read and write, which means that I can read what's in the folder, I can see it, and I can also write to it. And I can add files to it and change it and those sorts of things. I've got read here, which means that I can basically only see what's in the folder. I can't do anything with the things in the folder. All I can do is see them. I've got write, which means that I can write things to a folder, but I have no idea what else is in that folder. I can just basically save things there, and that's it. I don't get to see what's in the folder. And then there's some custom setups too that you can do with that, depending on how you want people to access those various folders. Let me come off this. So you can see here I've got permission to read and write. There's a staff primary group that has no access to this particular documents folder. And that's the primary group with all of my different users that I've got in here. And so I could change that from no access to whatever I want here. And the same is true with everyone else, what level of access I want them to have. If I wanted to add certain users to give specific access, I could do that. If I just started typing, John Doe in here or somebody like that, somebody that I've got, you see John Doe shows up, I can add him here and give him access as well. See, and just make that happen. I really don't want John Doe on there, so I'm just going to get rid of him and delete him. And you can see how to do that as well. So that helps you get an idea of how that works in terms of setting all this up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel this, and let's go back to the beginning here. Now, what I want to do is let me just show you what it looks like to add a file to file sharing. And what I'm going to do is add a folder to store home folders in, so that if I want users to have their home folders on the server, I'm going to create a folder for it just so it's in a separate location. So I'm going to click the plus here, and it brings down the tree here for me to figure out where I want to add folders and all that kind of thing. And so what I'm going to do is actually just inside the documents folder here, actually I'm just going to come here to documents. I am going to actually add a folder here. And so you can see I've got one right here that says home folders that I've already set up before. That's one that I've used in the past. I've got one that says home. I'm just going to add a brand new one. So let's come back to this level. And I'm going to add a folder, say new folder. And I'm going to say home folders. And I'm going to say server. So that's on there. Gives me an idea of what it is. I've got that set there. And I'm going to say choose. And so what it's going to do is actually set that folder up and add it to my file shares. And you can see it shows up right here. Now what I'm going to do is edit this folder. And you can see the different access points I've got. What I'm going to do is just make this available for home directories over, and I can pick the protocol, SMB or AFP. In this case, let's just pick AFP. Let's just go with the traditional thing there and set that up. You can see there's read and write access. I want to make sure that I've got read and write access for staff, because basically whoever's in my primary group there, I want them to have read or write access to it, because it's going to be where their home folders show up. Everyone else I can say read only if I want or no access, but I'm just going to leave it like that. So we're going to say OK. And it's going to make these changes to the file share for us. Okay, now all we need to do is basically turn the service on. So let's set up file sharing. So it's starting the service. You can see it. And now it says it's available on my local network in the Finder sidebar, right? So it's telling me, hey, everything's set up and you got your file sharing up and ready to go. So make sure you have that turned on. One more thing you might want to check, you might want to come up to your router. And once your router loads, you just want to make sure that file sharing is showing up here, so that will allow you to have remote access to it. So the appropriate ports will be open on your server. Just wanted to show you that just to make sure. Now, if you've got your router attached to server does that for you automatically. If not, then you've got to open those ports yourself. And so you've got to go through the process of adding them and all of that on your own router as well. So you want to make sure you get those ports opened. All right, let's come back in here. So now we got file sharing set up. Everything's up and running and ready to go. We've got the green light over here and green up here. So now let's show you how this home folders would work. If I go to users over here, and let's just take John Doe, I'm going to double click on him. And what I can do is I can actually move John Doe's folder from none to putting his home folder on the server. So I can actually add this on here. In fact, if I do that, let me just say his home folder's on the server. I can limit his disk usage to a certain size, right? So let's say, let's go 500 megabytes. That's fine. We're going to say OK. And what it's going to do is create home folders now for John Doe in the location we said. So if we just come back here and we just double click on this, let's view the files for the share that we set up. It takes us right into the tree. And you can see now right here under home folders, we just added John Doe, and he's got his home folders all set right there. And you can see that it added the home folders for him, and they're now sitting on the server. So that's how you get those home folders up and running. And like I said, it's a great process if you want to have people have access to their home folders on any machine on your network. That shows you how that works. Now, one more thing I want to show you. I've had questions frequently about permissions and people having trouble with permissions for subfolders and things that are underneath those folders. So for instance, maybe I set permissions for this level, but I'm having problems with any new folders that are added or people below that. So if you're having some trouble with your, your permissions and all of that, you can make some changes to them. If you come here, if you're on the server screen in the storage tab, if you come in here and I highlight this folder, if I just click the gear down here, I can go ahead and edit permissions in here, and I can do it right from this spot. Now, these are your basic permissions that you see throughout the operating system. Those are POSIX files, portable operating system interface files, and they give you basic permissions. This is the more basic setup for that. And I can make those changes here. Let me just cancel for a minute. But if you want to propagate changes down to all your different folders and you want to be more specific about which folders get which permissions and you want more flexibility, then you want to use access control lists, which are called ACLs. If you come here, you can actually propagate permissions this way, which means I'm going to take the permissions that this particular folder and I'm going to make them available to these subfolders. And so I can say which things I want to propagate down the list of folders that are underneath this particular tree. I can say the owner name, the group name, I can have owner permissions, group permissions, others permissions, and I can check those and make sure that access control list is checked and say OK, and then it'll fine-tune those folders to kind of make them match. So that's a trick, that's a way that you can go ahead and do that, and that hopefully should clear up some of your permissions issues if you get stuck. I'm just going to cancel that for right now, but I just wanted to show you that that's something you could do in here. So let's just go back into file sharing. So that's all I have for this week on file sharing. Hopefully that helps you get everything set up and running with your own file sharing setup. But that's all I've got for this week. I'll be back at you next week with another screencast to help you learn how to do more things with your Mac.